Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Bigandiyan na mazoman, my dear brothers, sisters, and respected viewers. Today we are diving into a very important and emotional topic. Why are non-Muslim people afraid of Islam, and are they wrong? It is a question that echoes in the minds of many. If Islam is the religion of peace, mercy, and justice, then why do so many non-Muslims fear it? Why does the very word Islam sometimes bring images of violence, oppression, or extremism in the minds of people who have never even read the Quran? This is not just a question about faith, it's about perception, truth, and the way narratives are shaped in the modern world. And inshallah, by the end of this talk, you will see that much of this fear does not come from Islam itself, but from something else entirely. The first question, why the fear? To understand why non-Muslims fear Islam, we must begin with this simple fact. People often fear what they do not understand. When someone has never sat down with a Muslim, never opened the Quran, and never stepped into a masjid, their understanding of Islam is shaped by what they see in movies, on the news, and on social media. And sadly, these sources rarely show the beauty, the mercy, and the compassion of Islam. Instead, they highlight only the extreme, the violent, and the controversial. It's like judging an entire tree by one rotten fruit. You don't see the shade it gives, the fruit it bears, or the life it supports. You only see one rotten branch and assume the whole tree is poisoned. The role of media in spreading fear. Let us be real here. For decades, mainstream media in many countries has built a particular image of Islam. The words terrorism and Islam are pushed together so often that some people cannot even separate the two. This is deliberate. When a crime is committed by a Muslim, the media is quick to use the word Islamic. But when a crime is committed by a non-Muslim, suddenly religion has nothing to do with it. Think about that. If a man named Ahmed does something wrong, he is called an Islamic extremist. But if a man named John does the same thing, he's just called a criminal. This double standard fuels fear. It paints Muslims as a threat, even when the vast majority of Muslims live peaceful, quiet lives, working, raising families, and worshiping Allah in peace. The hidden reason behind the fear. But let's go even deeper. Why is Islam singled out? Why does the system want people to fear it? The truth is, Islam challenges the very foundations of an unjust world. Islam calls for justice, honesty in trade, caring for the poor, and standing against corruption. Islam does not bow to kings, politicians, or wealthy elites. Islam teaches that every human being, no matter their skin color or social status, is equal before Allah. Now think, if Islam truly spread in its pure form, what would happen? The powerful who exploit the weak would lose their power. The greedy who hoard wealth would be called to account. And the corrupt systems that thrive on lies would collapse. So what better way to keep people away from Islam than to make them afraid of it? And this brings us to the big question. Are they wrong to be afraid? The answer might surprise you. Now let us turn to the heart of the question. Are non-Muslims wrong to be afraid of Islam? The answer is both simple and profound. Yes, they are wrong, but at the same time their fear is not entirely their fault. Imagine a person who has been told since childhood that fire is always dangerous. They never learned that fire can also warm your home, cook your food, or bring light to darkness. All they know is that fire burns. If one day you invite them to sit near a campfire, of course, they will be afraid. Not because the fire is evil, but because they only know half the story. This is exactly how many people see Islam. They only know the half of the story that the media and politics allow them to see. They see conflict but not compassion, punishment but not mercy, rules but not wisdom. But when a non-Muslim actually meets a practicing Muslim, something amazing happens. Suddenly the fear begins to fade. They see Muslims smiling, greeting with peace, raising families with love, giving charity, and living with modesty. They see that Islam is not a religion of hate but a religion of balance and justice. The Quran says, there is no compulsion in religion. Truth stands out clear from falsehood. This means Islam does not force anyone to believe. The truth of Islam is clear for those who sincerely seek it. So the fear is misplaced. It is built on ignorance, misunderstanding, and decades of false portrayals. The reality of Islam's teachings. Let us take one example. Many people say Islam oppresses women. Yet if we study history, Islam gave women rights at a time when the rest of the world denied them. Basic humanity. 1400 years ago, Islam gave women the right to own property, to inherit wealth, to receive education, and to be treated with dignity. Compare this to the so-called advanced societies of the West, where women gained these rights only a century ago or even later. Another example, people say Islam is violent, but in reality, Islam forbids the killing of innocent people. The Quran tells us that killing one innocent soul is like killing all of humanity, and saving one life is like saving all of humanity. Can there be a clearer call to peace? But because the world only sees wars and conflicts, they assume Islam itself is the problem. The truth is, political interests, greed for power, and territorial disputes are often the real causes. Islam is simply blamed to justify the chaos, the wisdom behind misunderstanding. Now here is something deeper. Sometimes Allah allows Islam to be misunderstood, because in that misunderstanding lies a test. Those who sincerely want to know the truth will look beyond headlines and seek the real message of Islam. And those who are content with lies will continue to fear what they never tried to understand. Fear in this sense separates the sincere from the insincere, and often, when someone genuinely studies Islam, their fear turns into respect, and sometimes even into faith. So yes, non-Muslims are wrong to be afraid of Islam, but their fear is the product of misinformation, not of reality. And it is our duty as Muslims to live Islam in such a way that our character speaks louder than any false headline. Now the question arises, what can Muslims do to remove this fear and show the world the true face of Islam? Now that we understand why non-Muslims are afraid of Islam, and that their fear is rooted in ignorance and misinformation, the next step is to ask ourselves, what can we, as Muslims, do to change this? How can we remove the fear and replace it with understanding, respect, and maybe even love? The first answer lies in the way we live our daily lives. The Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessings be upon him, was called Al-Amin, the trustworthy. Even by those who hated him, his character spoke louder than his words. When Muslims live with honesty, kindness, and mercy, they silently teach the world what Islam truly means. We do not need long debates or arguments to convince people. Sometimes one act of kindness can erase years of misunderstanding. When a neighbor sees a Muslim helping the poor, visiting the sick, or smiling with sincerity, that fear begins to melt away. The power of personal connection. Fear thrives in distance. When someone has never met a Muslim, it is easy for them to believe stereotypes. But when they actually know a Muslim personally, everything changes. Studies in many countries have shown that people who personally know Muslims are far less likely to fear Islam. So every interaction matters. The way we treat colleagues, classmates, neighbors, and strangers is part of dawah. We may think we are doing something small, but to someone else, it may be the first real experience of Islam they have ever seen. Sharing knowledge with wisdom. The Quran teaches us to invite to the way of Allah with wisdom and beautiful preaching. This means we must explain Islam with patience, not with anger. Sometimes non-Muslims ask questions that may sound offensive. Instead of becoming defensive, we should see these questions as an opportunity to clear confusion. For example, if someone says, "Why does Islam allow polygamy?" Instead of reacting with anger, we can calmly explain the wisdom, the historical context, and the fairness built into the system. By answering with respect, we open their minds rather than close their hearts. Living as ambassadors of Islam. Every Muslim is, in one way or another, an ambassador of Islam. Whether we like it or not, people will judge Islam through us. If a Muslim cheats in business, lies in dealings, or shows bad manners, then non-Muslims will think Islam teaches these things. But if we live by the Quran and Sunnah, then our actions will stand as proof against all lies. The Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, once said that the best among you are those with the best manners. Good manners are not just a part of Islam, they are one of its greatest proofs. Patience in the face of hatred. Sometimes, no matter how kind or honest we are, there will still be people who hate Islam. The Quran tells us that not everyone will accept the truth, and this is part of Allah's wisdom. Our job is not to force people to believe, but to deliver the message with dignity. When hatred meets patience, something powerful happens. Instead of lowering ourselves to the level of anger and insult, we rise above with grace. This confuses the haters and sometimes even softens their hearts. History is full of people who once hated Islam, but later became its strongest supporters after witnessing the patience of Muslims. The role of unity. Another reason non-Muslims fear Islam is because they often see Muslims divided among themselves. If we, as an ummah, stood united, strong, and compassionate, the world would see a very different image. Disunity weakens us and strengthens the lies told about us. Unity, on the other hand, reflects the true beauty of Islam. One brotherhood, one sisterhood united in worship of Allah. So the responsibility is on us. The question is not only why are they afraid, but also what are we doing to remove that fear? In the final part, we will reflect on the bigger picture. What happens when fear turns into understanding, and why Islam, despite all the fear spread against it, continues to be the fastest growing religion in the world. Now we come to the final part of our discussion. What happens when fear turns into understanding, and why, despite all the fear campaigns against it, Islam continues to spread across the globe at a speed that surprises even its enemies? The truth is simple. Fear may blind people for a while, but it cannot cover the light of truth forever. When non-Muslims take the step to learn about Islam sincerely, their fear often turns into admiration. Many of those who once hated Islam ended up embracing it. How? Because deep inside, the human heart recognizes justice, mercy, and truth when it sees it. Islam teaches discipline, balance, and purpose in life. It answers the questions that many people struggle with. Why am I here? What is my purpose? What happens after death? No matter how much fear is spread, these questions never go away. And when people search for answers, Islam provides clarity. This is why we see Islam growing rapidly, especially in places where it is attacked the most. In Western countries, despite all the negative media, people are entering Islam every day. Why? Because the more Islam is misrepresented, the more curious people become to know what it truly is. And when they read the Quran, they find a message that touches their soul. Think about this. If Islam was truly a religion of fear and violence, would people willingly embrace it? Would educated men and women, doctors, teachers, scientists, and ordinary workers choose it as their way of life? Of course not. They see through the lies and discover a beauty that no amount of propaganda can hide. What this means for us as Muslims. For us, this is both a blessing and a responsibility. We cannot control how Islam is portrayed in the media, but we can control how Islam is portrayed through us. Every smile, every greeting of Assalamu alaikum, every act of honesty, and every prayer performed with sincerity becomes a silent dawah. We should never underestimate the power of small actions. Sometimes the way a Muslim treats a stranger with kindness can plant a seed that grows into faith. Sometimes the patience of a Muslim in hardship inspires others to search for the source of that strength. And sometimes, the simple act of explaining Islam with calmness and respect removes a lifetime of misunderstanding. The final message. So why are non-Muslims afraid of Islam? Because of ignorance, misinformation, and the fear of losing unjust systems of power. But are they wrong? Yes, they are wrong. Because Islam is not a religion to be feared. It is a mercy for mankind. Our job is not to fight fear with fear, or hatred with hatred. Our job is to reflect the mercy of the Prophet Muhammad. Peace and blessings be upon him, who was sent as a mercy to the worlds. Let us be the reason someone's fear of Islam turns into love for Islam. Let us be the example that proves Islam is not darkness, but light. And let us always remember that guidance is in the hands of Allah. Our duty is only to live the truth, speak the truth, and trust that Allah will make the truth clear for those whose hearts are sincere. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.